Split champions!
Three rookies prove themselves worthy of the top four.
Styled on them with tentacles. Caps solo killed Perkz.
He just solo killed Perkz!
Perkz definitely took that to heart.
G2 Esports went from winning 4 titles in a row to getting 3-0 in a final against Fnatic. So the fact that Fnatic got their revenge this year ignites the rivalry between the organizations.
That's what did on the back end, and he's being zoned out. Yet another kill to Perkz.
Last time it was the beginning of the season. It was G2 who knew exactly what to do with their funnel comp. On the other hand, G2 Esports, after Rift Rivals, haven't been that on point.
It still looks like G2 is having some jet lag, so I wonder what's going on there.
But in the last couple of weeks, they have made some statements.
This is great. From G2.
And now I want to see what they can do versus Fnatic in their revamped form.
The skill level between these two teams, it seems almost dead even.
I don't see it being even for very long.
Jankos is really not playing around. If I do manage to out-jungle him, then I can be satisfied, because I've taken down the jungle in Europe that I respect the most.
You get to watch some of the best players in Europe play the best picks in the current meta. Fnatic, they are without a doubt the most creative team at getting early leads. G2's way to win this is through the top side of the map, and then make sure that Perkz is not getting chain ganked in the mid lane.
And not only is it going to be fighting, it's going to be with really weird champions.
This will be the first time that we'll actually just match up lanes and lanes. We are just straight up better.
The first professional game in the LCS Caps played, he solo killed Perkz twice. And I think Perkz is a smarter player, but I think Caps is more hungry.
When these two are matching up against each other, they are fighting for the title of best mid laner in Europe.
Most mid laners in Europe are really afraid of blind picking against me, so I'll get all the strong champions while Perkz is going to try to find out a counter he doesn't have.
He's a cocaine drop. Moving mid would not work against me.
No one even comes near Caps when it comes to mid laners in Europe, and that has to hurt for Perkz.
Like every single player from his team goes mid. That's what makes it hard to play against him.
I'm going to have to keep an eye on my mid laner. He's going to do some crazy things to make sure that he's going to prove that he's the better player.
Perkz was the best mid in EU. I always felt that I was the second best behind him. So I feel like I kind of overcame him. Would even question if he's the second best mid.
G2 versus Fnatic is the best we have to offer in Europe. There will be supports roaming, there will be junglers ganking, there will be mid laners fighting, then you are guaranteed action.
I want G2 to say, we won't have a repeat of the Copenhagen finals. We are here and we are back.
I just want to crush them. I just want to finally be able to win against Fnatic.
No one's going to play around in this one. Everyone's going to go at each other. It's going to be a bloodbath.
This could be the best regular season game we've had in years.
Welcome to Berlin, Germany for week 7 of the EU LCS Summer Split. There's plenty of action coming up in the next 2 days, and it all starts with some hard-hitting analysis and some hard-hitting banter here in Ready Check. I'm Evie Sjokz, finally joined by Christiander Frierson and Dan Foxdrop Wyatt. I haven't been around the 2 times that you were on the show, so I'm personally very happy that I get to be on set with you and Ender here today.
Yeah, you've been hiding from me. Every
Yes.
single time I've come down, you've been out of the country. I mean...
I ran out of holiday days, so basically...
Yeah, no, you have no excuse. You had to be here.
I wasn't sure if you guys were the same person because I'd never seen you in the room together. You know, who knows at this
What?
point?
It's a good
We're
shout.
no
It's true.
different.
I don't know.
All right, cool. In any case, I'm really happy that you guys are both joining me. Let's take a look at the standings and how the teams are stacking up before week 7. We just got a teaser for the match of the week tomorrow, and that's all about the top 3 and about Fnatic versus G2 Esports. But in general, I think it is important that we start resetting the conversation around the top 3, because a couple of weeks ago, it was all about these 3 teams are the strongest teams in Europe. Nobody can hold a candle to them, but things have changed.
They definitely have, and I think Fnatic, for me, have sort of displaced Misfits as the top team in Europe right now, even though standings would lie to you and tell you otherwise after Fnatic took out Misfits. They're my #1 right now.
Yeah, I think Misfits they didn't just lose the game to Fnatic, but they've lost another game now as well. They are 10-2, and they do look a little bit different from that unbeatable team that we were seeing in the past, but they still look very strong. We should also say that.
Yeah.
What is it then? What is it then about both G2 and Misfits that has kind of fallen off? Is that fair to say in the last couple of weeks?
Well, I don't actually think Misfits have fallen off. I think Fnatic just actually overtook them with a really good performance. They've also been trying out new strategies, trying to play through the top side of the map, whereas with G2, that's a little bit more worrying for me because all of a sudden, funnel strategy is out the window. They don't get to rely on Perks being able to take all the golden carry. And now Jankos has been struggling. He's had some really polarizing performances where sometimes he solo carries and sometimes he really is the reason why the team isn't picking
Yeah, just to emphasize your point, with Misfits, I think you can excuse their losses. At least you can, when they lose, you think, okay, this is why they lost. Don't worry too much. When G2 have lost, for me, it's actually looked quite troubling if you're a G2 fan. I think they've genuinely looked quite bad in some of their losses.
Do you think for Misfits it's because they've won so many games in a row, they maybe are taking it a bit easy and looking at what they can improve in these weeks?
It could be complacency as well, and like you say, what better time to practice new strategies than when you're already at the top and no one looks to really be threatening you?
Yeah, it's some short-term pain, trying out these new strategies for long-term gain in being able to play through multiple different lanes, which is something they haven't really done this split.
Well, the important thing here is that this is the current top 3, and we are only 3 weeks away from playoffs and from the last week of regular season. So these guys are aiming for that top 2 because then you get to skip the quarterfinals, get that bye, and go straight to the semifinals, which is a huge boon, and that is up on the stakes for these teams. Now, in the Fnatic discussion, there's one mystery, though, that has baffled experts all over the globe. A riddle so complex that even the best detectives couldn't solve it. Our faith now lies in the hands of a brilliant duo. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Medius and Vedius.
For too long, we have stood in the shadows, exploring mysteries in the darkness. Now finally, we are ready to step into the light to make known our great genius. Prepare yourself for an affront to your intelligence, the like of which you have never known. Prepare yourself for the adventures of Medius and Vedius.
For too long, deception has run rampant in the European LCS, but no longer. My friend, I, Detective Vedius, alongside the good Dr. Medius, will look to uncover these mysteries. Good day, my fine fellow. How the devil are you?
Oh, what ho and toodle pip to you, my good man. I am very well today. Now, Detective Vedius, the mystery that continues to elude us is not how you create bubbles with that magical pipe of yours. It is where our golden boy Reckless has gone. Now, Master Sleuth, how do we get to the bottom of this conundrum?
Well, my fine friend, initially this was a challenging one, but elementary, my dear Medius, I had some help from our good friend Ender Elriksson.
From an American?
He provided us with some valuable evidence that implied what Reckless has been up to during the regular season. I present to you Exhibit A!
Exhibit A!
Let us take a look.
Is that Mark Merrill?
That is indeed Mark Merrill. Reckless has been in communication with Mark Merrill to get him to remove mages from the bot lane.
To remove mages from the bot lane? But Mark Merrill does not have that sort of time. He's working on the MMO.
It's true, my friend, it is true. But now he's in this situation where Mark said to him, no, Reckless, I'm afraid this cannot be done.
Is this where the trail goes cold, though, Vedius?
That's what you'd think, but then, my friend, I present to you Exhibit B.
Exhibit B? Is that Faker?
That is none other than the best mid laner in the world, Faker. Some of you may have noticed that he's disappeared from the SKTT1 mid lane lineup, been replaced by some North American import. An American import, my friend.
That is sacrilege.
But he was doing it to help our young man, Reckless. He was teaching him about the mages. Look at the lessons, Rise, Syndra, all the things you can play. Faker was giving his time up to teach the young man.
Truly a worthy cause, but I'm pretty sure that Reckless would not be content solely on mages.
That is what you would think, and my friend, you would be quite right. So where do you think he would go to learn such skills?
To learn marksman? Yes. Well, surely from the best bot lane in the West, Xianen.
That is what you'd think, given that he is the best in the West. But, my friend, I tell you, what about the East?
The East? Egads! Gasp!
I do, in fact, mean the East. Who do you think I mean, my friend?
I have no clue, Vedius.
You don't know? It's Uzi!
Oh, it's Uzi!
How could you not think it was Uzi?
He's still my beating heart, it's Uzi!
The greatest AD carry on the planet. He has been teaching our young man Reckless what you can do with our AD carries. You can play them in the top lane. You can play them in the mid lane. It's all the same to Uzi. He's been educating Reckless. And with this, I provide you with the evidence needed to show that during the regular season, our young Reckless has been training. He has been getting ready to return to the EU LCS. And with that, my friend, my work here is done.
But Vedius, we want to know when Reckless is coming back. Vedius! Vedius! Confound and blast it once again. The blasted vagabond has left. I promise you we will get to the bottom of this issue. For now, I bid you adieu.
Wow. Holy,
that was something.
That was enlightening. That was wonderful. I applaud these two gentlemen and the work and the research they have done. And I guess all I can do is ask you guys if you have any other European LCS mysteries, please send them to us. With the hashtag ReadyCheck and Medius and Vedius, the magnificent duo, will figure out your mystery. Just tell us what you thought about that whole thing, because that was cool. I think that was the most enlightening or informative display about Reckless and him not being here that I've seen in the last couple of weeks.
I don't know about that, but I just need more of that in my life. I need more Medius Vedius, because that was...
It was something.
That was There's no other way to describe it.
Why don't you always speak that way? You're also...
I've had to tone it down for the international audience. But
Okay.
back home, you know, if we were to do it, you know, like a home tour, then... You know, when it's time for dinner, that's what they yell down from the stairs. Toodler!
Okay, there was...
Prepare! Dinner's ready! Tea time! And then you all come running for dinner.
Oh, well, in any case, we don't know when we'll see Reckless again, but talking about Fnatic, they will be facing off against G2 tomorrow in our match of the week. Let's get another sneak peek.
G2 versus Fnatic is the best we have to offer in Europe. There will be supports roaming, there will be junglers ganking, there will be mid laners fighting, then you are guaranteed action.
I want G2 to say, we won't have a repeat of the Copenhagen finals. We are here and we are back.
I just want to crush them. I just want to finally be able to win against Fnatic.
No one's going to play around in this one. Everyone's going to go with each other. It's going to be a bloodbath.
This could be the best regular season game we've had in years.
Well, this is one of our biggest rivalries in the EU LCS and a repeat of the finals in Copenhagen where Fnatic reigned supreme. Now, I mean, honestly, with the performance of G2 in the last couple of weeks, this has lost some steam. But then for me, this turns into, is G2 going to use this opportunity to show that they can be back on top by the time playoffs arrive in a couple of weeks? Can they use this as a statement that they can beat these guys?
Yeah, I mean, if it is a G2 victory this weekend, then all of a sudden the top three is turned on its head once again, because we're saying Fnatic's probably the best team. Well, if G2 can beat them, Fnatic can beat Misfits, where does that put Misfits in that conversation? So it would definitely create more questions than it would answer, I think.
Okay, that's true.
Exactly. In the past, there was a clear top two, one of which was G2, and the other being Misfits. And now it's probably Fnatic and Misfits, and G2 definitely want to knock on that door. And these two fellas that you're seeing in the background there, Caps and Perks. What more can we say about these two? Perks, before this split, wasn't really necessarily considered the best in the West for that mid lane. The fella next to him was. But now, perhaps things have been tossed on their head, and we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, and depending on where these organizations or teams are in the standings, I will always be excited for Caps versus Perks and to see who comes out on top. G2 did win the first time these two teams met in summer, so we'll see how different the picture is this time around. If you're honest, do you think it's just going to be a clear one for Fnatic?
I mean, yes, Fnatic are coming in here with so much steam behind them. I think they've been playing fantastically. And you look at Brox and Hylissang coming into the mid lane and just shutting down whoever Caps plays against. So I'm not actually sure Perks gets to play League of Legends in this one.
Wow, rough words, but we'll see tomorrow. We'll see if G2 can prove and they're wrong and beat Fnatic. But we need to keep an eye on the rest of the standings, not just the top three, because we are in the race for playoffs and every game counts in these last couple of weeks. And I want to shift the conversation to the teams at the bottom. HUK is unfortunately eliminated and cannot make it to playoffs, but the Unicorns of Love and Giants, they can still do it, but they're gonna need something of a miracle run. So how do you think about their chances? Foxdrop, I know you were a fan of the Unicorns of Love a couple of weeks ago. What do you feel now?
Yeah, I kind of put all my eggs in the Unicorns basket when I was talking to the Physio. I'm not going to flip-flop just yet because they can still make the playoffs. And this is the thing when we talk about any of these teams, either the Unicorns or Giants. Specifically with the Unicorns, I think They have an easier path. They have that extra win behind them. We have stranger things have happened in the EU LCS. Let's not forget. Exactly.
Last season.
And that guy you just saw right there, Exile as well. He really, if he steps up, they have one of the best junglers in EU, in cold. That mid-jungle duo is really strong. Unicorns can definitely do something here.
But the central thing here is, Ender, that if we look at the matches that these two teams still have to play, it looks rough. And Giants Cubes, the coach, sent out a tweet earlier today or yesterday saying, well, we need to win every single match. There's no two ways about it. So talk me through where and what matches they need to win specifically.
Right, so if you remember back to spring, it was 8 games was sort of the magic number to break into playoffs. So if we look at Unicorns of Love right here, there are 4 games that they absolutely must win. Those are the teams beneath them in the standings and vying for that spot in playoffs as well. But then you also look at the matches against G2 and Fnatic. Those are very difficult ones for them to win. But if they pull off a win against G2 and those other must-win matches, they're looking at a very realistic playoff run. Whereas on the side of Giants, it's much more difficult because they only have 3 wins in the regular season. You have to actually include G2 in those must-win matches. And then they also have to take a game off of either Misfits or Fnatic, which is a huge, huge mountain to climb.
Luckily for Giants, they already managed to beat out G2 a couple of weeks ago. So is that maybe why you put this one as a possible win for them as well?
Yeah, it's because they beat G2 and also G2 look like the weakest out of the top 3 teams at the moment. It's a much more realistic victory for them to get than up against the likes of Misfits or Fnatic.
So Fox, now that you've seen both of the schedules and what you know about these teams and what they've shown so far, who do you think can pull off that miracle run?
I think it's hard to argue against Unicorns, honestly, when just looking at the schedule. I mean, the fact that Giants have G2 as a must-win game, and it's not a must-win game for Unicorns, for me, really tells the story of the strength of the schedule for Unicorns and how, for me, it's easier, and they only need 1 less win because they've already got full.
And while Unicorns, it's the more likely run, you have to remember they're in 8th place right now, so they have to displace 2 teams above them in the standings. So it's going to be a very difficult thing to do, and you can't lose any of these games along the way.
And I think that's the most interesting thing about this run or a miracle run. Yes, they've picked up wins along the way, but now they have to win every single game, every single week until we get to playoffs if they make it. And that is where the trickiness is. You have to be fresh, you have to have new strategies, and you have to be focused every single game from now on.
Yeah, I mean, because Unicorns, we have seen them play well against some of the top teams in the league, but they've never been able to find that consistently high level. And when you have to win 4, 5 of your next 6 games, that is something you're definitely going to have to find.
Yeah, and I think both of these teams, when you're talking about how they're 8th and 9th respectively, and they have to get into 6th, Splice and Rocket are the 2 teams that you're looking might be that 6th place team, and both these teams play those teams. So to that extent, their destiny is in their own hands.
And also, TLDR, it's going to be really exciting in the next couple of weeks. And let's start by looking at who they are playing today at the beginning of week 7 and what those opponents look like. Let's take a look. Splice for the Unicorns of Love straight off the bat, where we put in a category as someone who they can beat, but will be very difficult. But I think if you start by having a good performance versus Splice and beating them, you gain that confidence for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, you definitely take some momentum. Exile also had some fantastic performances last week, but also Sjokz versus Rocket is a massive game as far as standings and the playoff run is concerned, because those are the 2 of the 4 teams sort of locked between that 4th through 7th place at the moment, and one of them isn't going to be going to playoffs.
Yeah, even these last 2 games in today's schedule, not only were they casted by very handsome people, so I hear, Misfits and Giants are not to lose in that matchup, and we're talking about if they want to make that miracle run, then they're not expected to win this game, but if they win, really nice stuff. And then Fnatic Vitality, I think it's a similar situation where Vitality, yes, there's a lot on the line for them still because they're still looking to make that playoffs. They could still fall out if they're not careful. But you're not expected to beat Fnatic, really. So both these teams looking to improve their playoff standing.
And this is also where both the best of one and the EU LCS kind of craziness jumps in, because anything can really happen. We've seen crazier things happen. Giants managed to beat G2 quite unexpectedly a couple of weeks ago. Maybe they do the same with Misfits. Vitality is up versus Fnatic, and we don't think Fnatic is going to drop that many games until the end of the split, but you never know. Do you guys see a chance for Vitality in this one?
I really don't. I think that, yes, if you can win the early game, then maybe you can have a chance against Fnatic. But with the form Fnatic have had, it is all their game to win.
Yeah, I would just, that's the exact thing. If you win early, there's a chance. But Vitality, we've seen when they don't win early, yeah, it's not pretty. So I would say it's going to be a tough one. But it could happen. It could happen.
I'd love to see in writing who you all voted for. So let's bring up our predictions and decide who the superior analyst is. It is none of the people listed on the screen right now. Foxdrop, you and me are in an intense battle, but I seem to have made up some games against you. How do you feel about that?
You know, I feel like I make everyone else around me look better.
You use that every week,
because it's true. What else am I going to say? It's true. I'm sticking true to the cause. I've got to make you look good somehow.
Yeah.
And with your analysis being what it is,
Oh my
then
gosh.
my predictions need to look pretty bad to make yours look.
Let's look at the differences. I am still on the Schalke hype train. A lot of you have said Rocket, but I was looking at their entire schedule, and I believe tomorrow they play Giants, so I thought that was
the one
more that they could win, and then this one would be a bit tougher, especially considering how Schalke performed against G2 Esports. So, yeah, it's a difficult one.
But you can't forget that Rocket also beat G2, and I think, like, if I look back to the first time these two teams played against each other, Memento actually got a pretty big lead in the jungle, but then threw it away off of some invades. I think there's a big skill gap between him and Amazing, and he's going to be able to abuse that today.
Wow. Well, if Amazing hears that, he'll be on Twitter and all the Rift trying to make it happen. And then finally, yeah, I did put my eggs in the Vitality basket. I don't know, man. I think Kiki is, you know, Fnatic Legacy, whatever. I think he can beat them.
Did you flip a
if
coin?
He's in, of course. Did I flip a coin? No, I did not flip a coin. But I did also have in mind that I voted for Fnatic over G2 tomorrow, and I didn't want to seem like a Fnatic shill, so I didn't want to put them 2-0. So it's ridiculous, really. I've lost the plot. I don't know how to do it anymore, to be honest.
You know what? I will back up your Schalke prediction here because Giants and Schalke being Rockets too. I know I haven't. All right, I'm just saying. I can see how. I'm still going Rocket, but I can see how you've gone with Schalke because the one-on-one Rocket Legacy most likely going to win tomorrow against Giants, so therefore they have to.
The curse / the blessing is too strong for Rocket. We will see. As a reminder, you guys are also on the board because you can jump in at home and tell us who you think will win every day by voting, sending your tweets at LOL Esports. The vote does close on noon at matchday, at noon on matchday, rather. That's the other way around. So for today, you're done, but you can go vote for the games tomorrow. Now, we'll also take a look at our player of the game leaderboard, another thing that you guys have a hand in. Not that many surprises, I would say, in the top. Hansama, Caps, and Yuktuk, I think we can agree with that.
I mean, you'll notice that these are all the people that Deficio really likes to talk a lot about. So with how the season's been going, I feel like Nukeduck's going to be getting a few more votes.
Yeah, I think that's been hammered home a little bit. The old year of the duck, not too surprising.
That's a banned word. I don't hear you.
Yeah.
Are you critiquing our broadcast from?
No, I love the
couch
broadcast. Yeah, no, exactly. When I'm sitting at home making my videos in my knickers, then that's exactly what I'm doing. But I'd rather talk about the bottom side here. If I may draw attention away from the duck in the middle and to the Belgian in the middle as well, Niski, I think that considering Splice are a real bubble team right now, they're looking like they want
What's a bubble team?
A bubble team is a team that's on the verge of playoffs but not playoffs. So a bubble is in, the bubble might burst, they might get in, but they're bubble rising and it
I
might
didn't know
pop
that
and-
term. Love it.
Yeah, there you go. So that basically might be a playoff team, might not, but every other team here looks like they're a bit safer, at least in my opinion here. And for Niski there to be on like a arguably weaker team and still have those MVP votes, I think is impressive.
That it is to me that Memento and Niski, even though they might be unexpected if you would look before the spring, but in terms of more technical, most valuable player for their team to get them wins, I think they absolutely fit in that picture. And I mean, Perks is almost never missing from these lists because if G2 wins, he always plays a big role in that.
Yeah, I mean, for all these, middle-of-the-pack teams, it is about who's the solo carry on this team. You look at the star players, Memento, Perks, Niski, they'll check off those boxes, and they're going to be your MVPs.
Well, let's see. We are minutes away from our very first game of the night. Unicorns of Love versus Splice. Now, we've talked about the Unicorns of Love a bit already. The fact that they're going to need a bit of a miracle run if they want to make it to playoffs. So if we look at that team, who is the guy to do it? Who is going to put the Unicorns on them back?
It has got to be Exile in the mid lane. You look at his huge performance against Giants last week on the Yasuo. He has really, really high highs, but he also has really low lows. And I just need to see that level of consistency we talked about with him in particular and bringing up that level of performance.
Yeah, a bit hit and miss for Exile, I would say, as a mid laner, and we want to see more hits and less of those misses, really.
Preferably.
Preferably, if you're a Unicorns fan and you want to make it to playoffs, that is what you want to go for. But just look at him. When he is enabled and when he's really on his game, Exile looks like one of the best mids in EU. And there's always that question of him, looking at him, you're thinking, Exile, buddy, why aren't you better? You know, when I just look at him.
In those moments.
In those moments, there's flashes of, you're a blooming good player, mate. Can we see more of that, please? That's really just what I want to get out of it.
It's a bit of a conundrum with me when I watch the games of the Unicorns of Love, because we've praised Cold a lot throughout the split, and also Totoro in moments for being proactive. And oftentimes it comes off of Cold just going to every lane, getting first bloods, and trying to get the snowball running. Do you think maybe they should shift their strategy, and it should be Cold and Totoro should just always go mid? Is that what we're looking at?
I mean, you can't always deal in absolutes like that. I do think that mid lane is the focus, and they should always be trying to get Exile ahead, because the other side's the map. Well, I think they can be solid players. They're not going to stand out and just solo carry a game. We've seen Exile have that ability, and that's what Unicorns of Love need. Top to bottom, they're going to struggle against teams in the middle and the top end of the pack, but if they can have that breakout with Exile, they'll win.
Well, every game is starting to count for them. Only 6 games left for the Unicorns of Love and for our other teams. And you talk about how they can do versus the middle of the pack and versus the top of the pack. Well, they're up versus Splyce. And Splyce is on an absolute roll. I would say ever since week 3, these guys have found their form, Foxdrop. And these guys have looked on course to be a solid team in playoffs.
Yeah, and last split in spring, this was a top 3 team. We saw them at Rift Rivals because they earned their spot there. And they just had a really bad start to summer, but like you mentioned, they're definitely on the upswing now. And this is what we want to see out of Splyce. Is Nisqy in the mid lane, when we highlighted his MVP performances, there's a reason why he's getting those votes. And if I'm playing versus Splyce, I'm not a strategic know-it-all or anything like that, but I'm just going to say there is a slight chance you might want to ban away that annoying little blonde girl or ginger girl, whatever she is, that flows around and one-shots you. I think she's called Zoe. No. You know, take away Zoe, and that might be a good idea, but just look at his stats. I mean, Nisqy he's really stepping up, and I think a lot of Splyce has been stepping up overall, and I would argue in their draft, they get a lot of their comfort picks, so just kind of push them away from comfort.
I mean, I like that you bring up some comfort picks, and Zoe in particular, because Unicorns of Love, they got side selection, and they chose blue side, which means that it's going to be Splyce that have to ban away all those OPs over on red, and Unicorns can target away some of those specific champions like the Zoe.
That would be a good choice. If we think back to last week, all I can remember in my nightmares and in my dreams is Nisqy on that Zoe, who looked like she had some kind of a speed run going on, because she was going all
She
over
literally
the map.
ran straight through a shockwave from like the back of it to the front, because that's how ridiculously fast she was.
Great champion.
If all things considered, it sounds like it's pretty much Splyce favored. Then I'm also looking at Splyce to keep their run going, because it's one thing to find your peak in week 3, in week 4, and keep it going. But now, if they start falling off now, they're going to drop some important games, and they are also not safe in the race for playoffs.
Yeah, right now they're tied for that 6th, 7th spot with Roccat, so you absolutely can't lose to teams underneath you in the standings. You expect all those other teams fighting for playoffs to beat the likes of the Unicorns of Love. So Splyce, they cannot drop this match whatsoever.
No, there is zero chance for you if you are, like you mentioned, I mean, 6th, 7th place, you just can't do it. I mean, maybe if you had an extra win there or something like that, but there really is zero room for error if you're Splyce.
We will see. For the Unicorns of Love, there's also starting to be zero room for error. They have to win every single game if they want to make it. Now, Foxdrop, you already said it. You think that the Unicorns of Love can make it, and I think you all agree that Splyce can make it. Sadly, this can't be a 0-0 or a 1-1, so who is it going to be?
I can't remember who I actually predicted for this. I'll just say Splyce because it was probably
You chose Splyce because I know you copied all my predictions, and I chose Splyce.
It was Splyce,
so.
yeah. They're going to win.
All right, only 2 minutes and a bit away from our very first game of the night. So important in the race for playoffs. Ladies and gentlemen, let's meet our casters for Splyce versus the Unicorns of Love.
Thank you very much, Sjokz. Good evening, everybody. I'm Trevor Quickshot Henry, joined after this by Martin DeFischer-Lunga. It's been a while, buddy. It's been a while since we've cast. There's too many casters now on the,
It's true, and funny enough, you're the one actually doing the caster rotation.